George Orwell. We didn't really discuss too much about him. Through your website searching, you might have read some about his biography and his life and times and such. This is a nonfiction piece called Shooting an Elephant, and it's really about his time in the military for England, where he was called upon to shoot an elephant. Okay, there's no surprises here. Nonfiction piece really happened. It's kind of neat to see after we've experienced 1984, and we can imagine what kind of an individual he was, to think of, so distrusting of government and so resentful of government. And here we get to really see kind of his journal or story about this occasion where he had to shoot an elephant. But there's a neat line in the beginning here of the building background. It says, "The sun never sets on the English Empire." If you think about it, how it's all spread out and spread around the world, it might be dark here, but it's sunny in Australia, and so the sun there's always sun on the land, on the empire. And they have their military spread out to keep the peace, to keep order, that type of thing, so that people don't hurt themselves, that type of stuff. Very similar, not exactly the same, but similar to Americans' role in Afghanistan and some other of those places. We're trying to instill a democracy, but yet the people there don't want us there, but yet we exert ourselves upon them to help out because we feel we need to. Not exactly the same, but close to it, because these people are ruling them. We're not ruling them, even though we're kind of forcing ourselves in certain situations, but that's beside the point. And his argument was, we shouldn't be here. We should let them do what they want to do. The very beginning of the introductory material, they mentioned Kipling, who wrote The Jungle Book, and Orwell. They said that Kipling was big into the colonialism. We need to spread out, we need to make everybody British and make everything wonderful and all this stuff. And Orwell resented that. He did not think that that was the case. Upon reading this, and I think you'll find it entertaining, but it's really troubling at the end to see what the mindset of Orwell has become. And it's not much of a stretch to think about, wow, the seeds were definitely planted, for 1984 in this particular time period. Okay, so it's kind of nice to throw this at the end of our semester, so that we've experienced him. This really wouldn't be as exciting or as neat if we didn't understand that. Wow, that's the author of 1984 doing all of these things. So we get to see him in the military. There was a military presence in 1984. Okay, so we get to see him in the military doing things that he doesn't want to do. They'll talk about women, they were being treated inappropriately. If there was a British woman walking and she was unaccompanied, people would spit on her, things like that, and people would hurt them in football games, soccer, things like that. So pay particular attention to some of those things. Look at the role of the class structure again in here, even though we're not in British land. Well, technically this is British Commonwealth, but we're not in London to see it, with the proles and so on. But here they kind of have their own version of their proles and how they perceive the different classes and that type of thing. So pay particular attention to that. Shooting an elephant. We see a lot of resentment in the very first couple pages of Orwell towards, his imperial roots, his connection to the colonialism that is spread throughout the world, and where he is particularly stationed at this time. He says throughout here, mainly at the beginning, that he is uneducated and young at this particular point, so he hasn't really experienced life or experienced the world. But what little he has, he doesn't necessarily think that we British people should be supplanting our beliefs and practices upon other people. Looking on 1080 along the left side, for at that time I'd already made up my mind that imperialism was an evil thing, and the sooner I chucked up my job and got out of it, the better. Theoretically and secretly, of course, I was all for the Burmese and all against their oppressors, the British. As far as the job I was doing, I hated it more bitterly than I can perhaps make clear. In the job, you get to see the dirty work of what your country does and what they're in charge of. And that really scarred him, which we can see played out, in the novel 1984. And I'm not familiar with some of his other writings, but I would imagine you could see some of that resentment towards, big government as well. I almost said Big Brother. But government and people in charge, you can see that resentment played out elsewhere. I did not even know that the British Empire is dying. Still less did I know that it is a great deal better than the younger empires that are going to supplant it. So he doesn't realize, in the grand scheme of things, that they are coming down from that golden age. They are coming down and losing. Retrospectively, you can look hindsight 20/20, and he can see that we were a lot stronger than we are now. And yet he's still worried about the people that are going to supplant it, the smaller countries. So yet I don't support my people, but yet are they better than what could supplant them? And that's where he was struggling and such. I was stuck between my hatred of the hatred, such a strong word. I was stuck between my hatred of the empire I served and my rage against the evil-spirited little beasts who tried to make my job impossible. With one part of my mind, I thought of the British Raj as an unbreakable tyranny. So the British rule is unbreakable tyranny. But yet another part, I thought that the greatest joy in the world would be to drive a bayonet into a Buddhist priest's guts. What? That's kind of a violent thought. Instantly, I think back to 1984. Remember all those thoughts Winston had? Those we should really do these things to Julia or to other people and so on. So he feels for these people, but yet, because of all the ridicule and the little beasts who make his life difficult, he just wants to take a bayonet and just stab out a priest's guts and kill him. So he's a conflicted individual. I think we can safely say that. So that's where his struggle is, and that's before we even really broach the elephant situation. Okay, the situation that he doesn't want to kill this elephant that they said was tied down and broke loose. It was in heat. It needed to mate. Okay, it went nuts. Okay, you might have a cat or dog that hasn't been fixed, and you might notice when it's they are in heat. And this elephant picked up. They called him a coolie. And, put him down with his trunk and stepped on him, killed him, and went on its course. Okay? It didn't premeditate, I'm going to go kill people and go on a rampage. It was just, this thing's in my way, get out of my way, and just kept going. However, he was kind of responsible, being the law in that area, and he went to see what was going on. When he finally tracked it down, if you look on the next couple of pages, it says that he didn't want to shoot it. Maybe I'll try to get close to it, and if it doesn't charge me or doesn't show aggression, maybe I can just go away and everybody will be okay with it. But he realizes that the moment he started heading towards it with his rifle, and everybody in that crowd kind of started to get excited. I'm envisioning like the movie Rocky, when he's out, any of them I guess, he goes out training and he just starts running, and then everybody starts coming behind him and just joining and cheering him on. Forrest Gump, when he goes on his run during that segment of the movie, why does he go? I don't know, I wanted to run. So he takes off, and dozens of people start following him and just start running with him for no particular point. But here, those people, they want some entertainment. What's their particular motivation? We've been talking about motivation a lot in the last couple stories. The reason characters do or say a particular thing. Those people, they might just want entertainment. They might want to see something big get shot. At the end, when he says that, they stripped its bones and they took everything, meat, maybe they wanted food. Maybe they wanted the ivory. I'm going to get the first one. After he shoots it, I might get the ivory. You're going to have to fight me for it. And so then they had to, go and deal with that situation. And so everybody had different motivation, and he couldn't just walk away at this point. He knew that he was committed to shooting it, even though he didn't want to do it, because he didn't want to be laughed at. The crowd would laugh at me, and my whole life, every white man's life in the East was one long struggle not to be laughed at. Okay, and that's highlighted on 1082. If you look at the left-hand column, he goes into greater detail, and suddenly I realized that I should have to shoot it after all. The people expected it of me, and I had got to do it. I could feel their 2,000 wills pressing me forward. We have about 2,000 people in this school. Imagine one of the pep sessions. All of those people following you while you go and do this. Now, are you going to be able to go, oh, I'm not going to do it, and walk out of that gym without doing it? With everybody's will pressing on you, that mob mentality pressing on you? It was irresistible. And it was at this moment, as I stood there with the rifle in my hands, that I first grasped the hollowness, the futility of the white man's dominion in the East. Because think about it. They are in charge. He should be able to do whatever he wants, within reason, obviously. But yet, they're pushing their will upon him and forcing him to do something. Do you see how that seems like a contradiction? And so on. Here was I, the white man, with his gun, standing in front of the unarmed native crowd. Here I am standing with my gun in front of an unarmed crowd. Seemingly the leading actor of the piece, but in reality I was only an absurd puppet, pushed to and fro by the will of those yellow faces behind. I perceived in this moment that when the white man turns tyrant, it is his own freedom that he destroys. So he really doesn't have the freedom to do what he truly wants to do in this situation because of, England and what they put him into this situation. So a real struggle, and I wanted you to really get that sense of, he didn't just walk up and start shooting and emptying his gun clip. It was a mental struggle and angst, back and forth, back and forth. And then he finally, when he does shoot it, it doesn't die. He shoots it again and again, shoots it in its mouth, shoot, shoot, shoot. Seems like a sensitive place, and the thing didn't die. After he left, it took 30 minutes for the thing to die. Now, if it had died right away, he still would have been troubled by it. But the fact that this thing had to struggle for whoever knows how long total, that this thing had to start bleeding and dying in the pain, and it couldn't even get up anymore. And the blood was just oozing out. The fact that it labored long and long and long probably twisted that knife a little bit further into Orwell's back about it. You know what I mean? You always hear about putting an animal out of its misery, that type of thing. He was trying to do that after the first shot didn't work. And he tried to shoot it and shoot it and shoot it and shoot it and shoot it. But the last couple lines, if you take a look there, we really see the example of how I told you to pay particular attention to the, the societal hierarchy, that structure that we've been talking about in 1984. We had the proles and the party members and the upper party members and so on. Even here in this society, he said that, everybody was, some people were glad that he did it, other people weren't. Like, I wouldn't have killed an elephant because it killed a coolie. I mean, an elephant's worth so much more than one coolie, because they think that those coolies are those proles and they're the bottom rung. And this isn't Orwell saying this. This is the other commoners and the other Burman or Burmese. Okay, so they had this societal structure playing out in their town. Maybe because of some of that English influence of colonialism and how things are run and how things work back home in London and other parts of the world. Maybe that has influenced them and how they perceive other people. But yet it's just a brief little element to kind of highlight, that integral part of our unit that we've seen reflected in a couple pieces. And just the last couple lines, I often wondered whether any of the others grasped that I had done it solely to avoid looking like a fool and not having people laugh at me. And so that's the ultimate reason that he ended up doing it. And so we see that pain, that anger towards England, towards why are we here? Why are we doing this? And then I have to go and do this. This is ridiculous. I don't want to do it. And we just really see the angst. I think this resonates a lot stronger. We should understand it a lot stronger just because we know where Orwell eventually runs into, the novel 1984. But now we can see him as a young, impressionable. It didn't say anywhere how old he was. Did it? 18, 19, 20, a little bit older than you. And yet, these are your influential years. And we can see that with him. And if he has all this angst and just frustration, we can, that would explain some of the drama that was evident in the novel 1984. So that's why I like to have Orwell way here at the end of our unit after we've done the novel.